Okay, let's take a look at this. Hey guys, it's Andrew. This is the these are shots from the Real News Network's YouTube site. As you can see, they're far left, as you can tell, all anti-Trump. Talking about the economy is going to fail. America will fail without immigrants, and the economy is going to crash without the immigrants that are here illegally. And then it gets into the, Israel's war on Palestine. I mean, is that biased or what? War on Gaza and the occupation. These are far left leftists that are somehow involved in First Amendment auditing. I guess they want us to use their advice on how to improve the police. I don't think so. They're anti-police. Just look at the defund the police movement. That's where these folks kind of came from. Far left organization, this Real News Network. Let's hear from them directly.
Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I always make clear, this show has a single purpose: holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And today, we will achieve that goal by showing you this video that reveals just how easy it is to abuse the immense power we confer on police. That's because
she talks about examine the system. Well, they examine the system using a Marxist magnifying glass. What do you think is going to come out of that process?
As you will see, cops not only stopped two men for walking down a street without any probable cause, but after it was clear
certainly nothing that's going to be positive for the police, that's for sure.
There was no evidence to sustain the stop. The police on the scene tried to put the blame for their overreach on the people they detained and harassed. But before we get started, I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com, or you can reach out to me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Facebook or Twitter, and we might be able to investigate for you.
They're going to fit all square pegs in round holes to fit their objective.
It does help us get the word out, and it can even help our guests. And of course, I read your comments and appreciate them. You see those little hearts I give out down there. And we also have a Patreon called Accountability Reports. So if you feel inspired to donate, please do. We don't run ads or take corporate dollars, so anything you can spare is truly appreciated. All right, we've gotten that out of the way. Now, as I've discussed on this show before,
total Marxist, we don't take corporate dollars, anti-corporation. It's basically what she's saying as she pitches for money. I can't believe anybody who would actually give them any money.
Police power is both extraordinary and unusual. Extraordinary in that it's been allowed to erode our constitutional rights under the pretext of law and order for decades. Unusual because that erosion has led to an undemocratic pathos, and it's crept into American society in ways that are often unnoticed and unacknowledged. And nothing exemplifies this dual threat to our rights than the video I am showing you right now. It depicts a random stop by police of two men walking peacefully on a public sidewalk. But it's what happened once police realized they had been caught in a classic case of overreach that shows us not.
Let's take a look at what the behavior is of these two guys that the cops run up on. And, right away they're questioning their rights and being uncooperative. But always look at the behavior.
Tells us how the law enforcement industrial complex has become comfortable with the idea that our rights don't matter, especially if exercising your rights impedes their power and exposes how they abuse it.
The law enforcement industrial complex. These guys are no friends to the police. That's for darn sure. They don't want to help. They don't want to try to improve. They don't want to help. They don't want to educate. They want to destroy the police. What do you think defund the police was all about? It's that ideology that they subscribe to. It's the same ideology.
The story starts in Napanee, Indiana. There, Donald Nicodemus, otherwise and somewhat ironically known as Freedom to Film, was walking down a public street with a friend. Both, of course, were carrying cell phone cameras, but they were also apparently doing something else that was far more insidious. Let's watch as a Napanee officer confronts them.
Is that a lawful order?
These guys are baiting the police. It's midnight. They've got backpacks on, and they're both walking with cell phone cameras, and they're taking video, walking in pitch black. Yeah, they're on a public sidewalk, and they're free to certainly do that. But the police are free to find them suspicious and to come up and check them out.
Why would you stop somebody
Why'd you
from
stop
moving about
us?
freely unimpeded for no reason?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Because it's the middle of the night, I
So
saw you
what?
guys up
For
under
what?
here.
Are we suspected of doing something?
The cops saying come back, and the first thing they say is that a lawful order?
The business is closed. It's private property.
Immediately uncooperative.
You are now. I came back by. You guys were right here.
This is still an easement.
Still an
You
easement.
see those
Okay.
utility poles?
I do.
Where's your supervisor at?
He's actually working with me.
Get him down.
Get him down here.
Now, it's worth
They're peppering the cops with questions as opposed to letting the cop ask the questions and communicate why it was that he stopped. But these guys are like, oh, well, why did you stop us, and what crime are we committing, and so on.
noting that the sidewalk is practically the last vestige of our First Amendment rights. It's like an oasis of freedom that has yet to be sullied by the government or otherwise
Because you're
fully
suspicious.
encroached upon. That's because American law enforcement has taken an increasingly aggressive posture towards filming them while performing their official duties. Meaning, if you're on the road or a street, you're blocking traffic. Or if you're at a public office or facility,
Even if they're walking legally, he has the right to stop because they're suspicious.
you're prohibited from filming regardless. So that leaves the sidewalk as the sole geography where filming anything is expressly protected. And it's in the freedom to film zone where officers continued to harass him. Take a look.
He's right here if you want to talk to him.
Nobody's stopping them from filming, lady.
Don't impede traffic, pull in so he
This business is closed.
We were on an
can...
easement.
City's closed?
No, you said I was impeding traffic.
No, he's impeding traffic.
Oh.
And they immediately criticize the police, telling them how to do his job, turn the emergency lights on. They're just looking for anything to jump on the police about. Any small thing they are going to take and blow out of proportion. And this is the extreme disservice that these First Amendment auditors do to the police in terms of wasting their time and really not being sincere about the interaction.
You might want to turn your lights on.
He's got his emergency lights.
My lights are on. What's your name and badge
You
number?
guys want to talk to me?
Oh.
For my
What's up?
abandoned
What's your
car.
name and badge number?
We're wondering the
Officer
same
Johnson,
thing.
840. Why? What's
We
up?
were ordered to stop
We're
when we
ordered to
were
stop
freely
unlawfully.
traveling
What do you
down.
mean unlawfully?
Do you know
Ah,
what
jeez.
moving about freely unimpeded means?
Are you walking on the sidewalk?
Reasonable articulable suspicion.
Where were you when this officer approached you?
This is a consent.
We were on
I
a
was on a
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
Then go.
No, he told us to stop.
Oh,
So you're not.
he just said, "Are you
Stop
his butt
means-
buddy?"
Or
I
you
am.
just is, like, his-
This is going downhill
I'm-
fast.
Well, keep
So
your attitude
you're free to
professional
go.
at all
Well,
times.
He said stop, so
I said stop. I asked who you
if
were.
we were to keep going, we would probably be hemmed up for
For what?
resisting.
But it turns out Freedom to Film was prepared to push back, which is exactly what he did as the officers continued to question him. Queries that turned to accusations as the encounter unfolded. Take a look.
Okay, you
Really, what he has is the freedom to be a pest and to be impolite and to be disrespectful to the police. Calling him butt buddy is a bit dehumanizing, I think, and a smear. And we'll see if if it devolves into more name calling like that. But these guys are not approaching this interaction with neutral intent. They know they know exactly what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're trying to create a quality YouTube video for this guy's YouTube channel. quality, meaning if there's a lot of, interaction with police that's negative or confrontational, that makes a good video, and they sell, more videos, and YouTube sends them more money.
Guys,
reason
I'm
we're here-
assuming with all the cameras, you're just out here trying to bait officers.
No, we ain't baiting
Hey,
nothing. We're
you guys
walking
are
down.
free to go.
We're walking down.
They are exactly doing that. They're baiting the officers by looking suspicious, filming at midnight, walking down a sidewalk in the middle of nowhere.
Street.
Is that
You guys
an
are free to
inflammatory statement?
No, it is not.
Baiting by walking down the road.
Okay, you guys can go.
Well, we
You're
were
free to go,
going.
too.
But
I
we were
drove
told
by
to
this
stop.
way. You were
What's your name,
standing underneath
Johnson?
the gas station.
What's your badge number, Johnson?
They claim they're free, and they're free peoples that want to freely travel, and these cops now are saying go, and they don't want to go now. Why? Why don't they want to go, do you think? They're holding 2 cameras. I wonder why. Do you think it's because they're looking for more content to put in a video to load up on YouTube later on and pimp out to people and disparage the cops in the process? I think so.
What's your badge number?
Okay, you guys are free to
What's
go.
your badge number?
Okay, if
This
you're gonna
was
come
a
at me with
consent
aggressive,
No,
this is
I
consensual.
want to know your badge
Now
number.
it's a lawful order for you guys to go.
No, we don't have to go nowhere. We're on a public sidewalk.
Go.
We don't have to go.
Okay, do you know what provocation is?
What's that?
Provocation is willingly and knowingly and intentionally coming out in a confrontational state to entice
I just
violence.
asked
Or-
for your badge number.
Huh? Okay.
I asked for your.
Provocation. I like that. What's happening around the country right now is prosecutors and courts are looking at each other around in each state and trying to find strategies to deal with the tremendous cost of the First Amendment auditors in terms of resources and time spent fooling around with these folks, arresting them and whatnot. And these First Amendment auditors are losing court cases all over the country. But this, I haven't heard of provocation as one reason, one thing that'll survive judicial review. But maybe this guy's onto something.
Where'd you get your law degree? Where'd you get your law degree? Where'd you get your law degree? Okay, then go.
And finally, faced with the absurdity of the intrusion on the rights of both men to walk unimpeded through their community, something
It wasn't absurd. It's midnight. They had backpacks. There's small businesses that are closed there. They are checking out a suspicious situation. 2 guys walking in the middle of nowhere, completely out of place. They were baiting. They're no different than a fisherman putting a minnow on a hook and throwing that hook in the water to bait some fish. It's the same thing that's going on here. These guys are trying to create a video. Yeah, they know the First Amendment. They know it a lot more than the cops, I'm sure. But the cops know a lot of other stuff, too, that they were trained on. That's really kind of the problem. The police do need a brush up on the Bill of Rights, and they don't probably get that very much in training. That is the changing across the country. We can thank First Amendment auditors for that because they have brought this concept of the Bill of Rights to the surface. But they are doing it in a very disparaging, disrespectful, and dehumanizing way to the precious resource that we all have, which is the thin blue line that is our police.
unexpected but revealing happened. An admission by the officer that I think speaks to the reason every citizen should have the right to film them. Just watch.
You guys are free to
We're
go.
on a public
You're
sidewalk.
free to go too. Get in.
I'm here all night. You don't tell me what to
I
do.
get paid the same.
We do have the
I
right to
stand
film.
right
Well, you
here.
told
We
us
can
what to
stand here
do.
all night.
All right.
Well, when you're standing under
You
that
said
gas
because we
station,
had backpacks
I come back
on.
by
Oh,
and you're
you're a liar,
walking
dude.
away. It looks a little suspicious, so I went out
Is
on you.
suspicious a
And
crime?
then when I said, "Hey, stop," and you continued to walk,
Because we
That
didn't feel
makes me
like we
think
had to
something
stop.
else.
So you saw them walking behind the building?
We were.
no, they were
we
they were
got all this
standing
on camera,
up
man.
under the speedway
GPS,
overhang.
baby. GPS, right here.
I don't care. Okay. You guys are free to go.
Yeah, we're free to stay too.
No, you don't tell us when to leave. You are free to go.
We're free to stay too. They're just escalating it.
Free to stay.
Okay, whatever.
We're free to get. We're free to stay. Every First Amendment auditor.
We're trying to prove that
Shows
people
that.
get harassed for doing no crimes
That's all I gotta
in this
say.
country every day of the
You
week.
guys watch way too much YouTube where I can
No.
assume all these videos are going to be found. So you're free to go.
Okay, well,
I'm going
so
to
are
enjoy
you.
the rest of my night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Huh? Okay, I'm doing my job, so you stay over there. This is a completely different incident. Hey, remember the 20
Hey,
the new law.
yeah, remember the 25-foot law. Remember that name, too.
Remember the name? Why?
Remember that name.
Why?
Remember that name.
Why?
Remember it. You just,
Hey, do you want to get an intimidation charge?
no, you just brought up the 25-foot law. I'm saying remember that name.
Do you know the 25-foot law?
I do.
What is it?
Anybody that encroaches within 25 feet of an officer during, a scene or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Perfect. So he can
I'm just
start there.
saying, remember that name. Remember it.
Remember the name?
Yep.
If you know the 25-foot rule, I suggest you stay on the other side of that road. All right.
So he's running my
That's kinda
ID
weird, but
because I crossed the street.
what's
He
that?
gave him his ID.
He's running my name because
Interesting.
I crossed the street.
Yeah, you didn't use a crosswalk.
Yeah. Do you guys know what the statute is in Indiana?
Got him on crossing the street illegally just to get his ID. Cops are doing a good job. They're sniffing out who these two jokers are. Of course, they're YouTubers, but they could be burglars.
Indiana?
Do you know the statute?
Yeah, I do. If you cross outside a crosswalk, you yield to the traffic. There was no traffic. I crossed the
Can I
street.
explain something to you, okay? The
Why
driver's
are you
license,
shaking?
whatever it is.
Oh, he's giving me a ticket.
I am giving you a ticket for failure as a sidewalk or crosswalk when available.
Now, it turns out there is more behind Freedom to Film's encounter with Indiana police than meets the eye. That's because the state has recently passed a law to crack down on filming police, a move that he is fighting with his camera and in the courts. And for more on those efforts and what he's doing, we will be speaking to him later. But first, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Stephen Janis, who's been looking into the case and reaching out to the police. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So first, what are police saying about this encounter? How are they justifying it?
Well, Tay, I reached out to the Napanee, Indiana Police Department. I sent them a message through their Facebook page. I have not heard back. But my main question was, how do
They're probably not responding because they are blowing you off.
you explain what the officers were doing? Why were they interfering with someone's right to peaceably assemble and move up and down a sidewalk? So far, they haven't responded, but if they do, I will put something in the chat and let people know what happened.
So can you explain this law in Indiana that's supposed to limit cop watching? What is it intended to do, and how is it actually being implemented?
So, Tay, as you can see, this is absolutely ridiculous. This police officer could literally push him into a nearby state, towards Chicago or something. I don't know. It's crazy. So that's why the ACLU is challenging this.
The smear, ridiculous, unfair smear. They have lots of arbitrary power. They wear guns. They have tasers. They're trained in the art of combat. There's plenty of power there, and you don't see them rolling over citizens on a regular basis. It's the vast majority of police that are there doing good work, and they're good people. It's a very small minority of police that turned out to be bad. It's like any large organization. You're going to have people that are not going to work out for one reason or the other, and they get, taken out. And the police do a pretty good job policing their own, but sometimes, these cops that are bad do hang out on the force. Sometimes the First Amendment auditors pick them up and get them fired. But the problem is at the end of the day, the First Amendment auditing community believes that it's the majority of police that are bad and the minority of police that are good. And the truth is, it's the majority of police that are good, and it's the minority of police that are bad. Don't forget it.
Because it's arbitrary. And when police have access to arbitrary power, things go south quickly. So it's an absurd law.
So what are your thoughts on this push to make cop watching basically illegal? What do you think is going on, and what will be the long-term ramifications?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is a power dynamic between citizens and their rights and the police department's ability to abuse them. And why I think it's important is because they're not going to enforce this kind of law against the mainstream media. Who they are worried about are the regular citizens picking up their cameras and saying, we're going to hold you accountable in ways you never anticipated. I think that's what it's about, because really in some ways it's like asymmetrical warfare. You know, when people just come out with cameras and their YouTube channels, they cover police in a different way. I think a much more accountable way. I think the mainstream media kind of works with police in many ways that cop watchers don't. And this is about really, I think, pushing back against cop watchers, not about the rest of the mainstream media and the people who work for big media organizations with lots of money.
Look, these cop watchers are abusing the cops. That's why they're coming up with laws and unique ways to counteract the abuse. You know, when you come up and you just start cussing the cop like a dog and dehumanizing them and calling them scoundrels and tyrants and you know, scumbags and the like, you know, it's really an abuse. And when you hang out in public lobbies and because of your presence cause a commotion, or cause the public employees to not be able to do their work and their business and their duties, you know, that's a real problem. Yes, you have a right to be in a public lobby, but they also have a right to be able to do the work unimpeded that they were hired to do. So we've got a little bit of a conflict here, and the cops are finally pushing back against you idiots.
This is about pushing back on fundamental freedoms of a citizen to go out and record, and really we need to fight back against it.
And now to delve deeper into the anti-cop watching law, his work as a First Amendment auditor, and what he has learned from numerous encounters with police, I'm joined by Freedom to Film. Donald, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Taya.
So you seem to have been cop watching earlier that evening and were walking with a friend down a public sidewalk, and an officer approached you. What happened next?
He told us to stop. He directed us to stop. And we turned around and approached him and asked him if that was a lawful order.
So you asked for a supervisor, but his arrival only seemed to make the situation worse. How did he approach you, and can you tell me what he said?
He approached with kind of an attitude. Once he realized that we were recording, he then stated that he felt like we were baiting them. And my partner asked him if that was an inflammatory statement.
So it's interesting that he mentioned the word inflammatory, because you were accused of provocation by the supervisor. However, the first officer initiated the stop.
Provocation is going up and just being a complete jerk off to the police. That's what was going on. And of course, these leftists that are conducting this interview at the Real News Network are not going to point that out.
But the second referenced your cameras as part of the provocation. What was he referring to here?
I believe he meant because I had raised my voice to him. I was requesting his name and badge number. And
You guys were being jerks to the cops and they were not putting up with it. That's what was going on.
so I raised my voice. And then he brought up the term of provocation. And, you know, I asked him, how is requesting your name and badge number, you know, provocation? And then he started to define what provocation meant. And, you know, for just requesting someone's information, it's hard to believe that they could try to use that against you.
So the officer asked you, or the gentleman with you, where did you get your law degree? Do you think he was hoping that you didn't know your rights to the letter? I mean, what do you think he meant by that statement?
I believe he was just trying to poke fun at us because, you know, a lot of police make statements about YouTube law degrees or, you know, people that watch, you know, the videos and stuff. So it's funny to them. And, you know, I've never claimed to have a law degree. I just look things up and learn things, you know, to apply to whatever situation I'm facing out, you know, filming police in the course of their duties.
So I thought it was interesting when the officer said you were free to go and you said you were free to stay. And the officer seemed very displeased by that response. But your encounter didn't end there. The officers went to confer and then immediately approached you again. And it seemed they forced a situation where they could demand your ID. What happened next?
First off, we were told that we were stopped originally when this encounter first began because we were seen walking through a private parking lot of a private business that was closed. Okay, so after the supervisor we requested came and we had our discussion with them, they left the scene and immediately went across the street to a private parking lot of a closed business. So, you can see where this is going.
So the officer mentioned the 25-foot law, and you laughed and told him to remember your name. And he immediately accused you of intimidation, possibly trying to build a case against you. Tell me about Indiana's 25-foot law and your unique connection to it.
Yes, Indiana recently passed a law July 1st, the 25-foot law, which is basically, in a nutshell, that if you approach an officer during an investigation, if you are asked to step 25 feet back, you must do so, or you can be arrested.
Nothing wrong with that law.
I believe a Class C misdemeanor.
So you had an interaction where they used the 25-foot law in a questionable way. The officer asked you to move back 25 feet and then enforced another 25 feet back and then another. Can you describe the scenario?
Okay, so that situation was a shots fired call. We arrived.
That's abuse.
Another YouTuber and I, Famously Unfamous is his channel. We arrived and the police were on the other side of the street, kind of catty corner to where we were, and they were placing shot casing markers. And the side of the street that we were on, there was a disturbance next door to a business, and there was no crime scene tape or any markers indicating, that where a boundary was. So we heard a disturbance between citizens and the police, and we were moving towards that area so we could see what was happening. And as soon as we started to cross the street at Brookfield, we were ordered by Officer Stepp to stop. So we stopped, and he said we couldn't proceed any farther. So he paced out 25 feet or, 25 steps, which, probably wasn't 25 feet. So we complied with that. And then a short moment later, Officer Veal approached and asked Officer Stepp if, it was okay. Because I told him, he said we were okay there. And he asked Officer Stepp if that was okay. And he said, disregard, what I said, because he was going to move us back farther. And then something was said or something, maybe someone said you're dismissed or something, and that made him very upset. So he said he was the crime scene tech, push back farther, 25 more feet from that point that we were already pushed. It just got very heated. And
So make a complaint, but, be helpful to the police.
And this example's been brought up by the ACLU, that one officer can push you back 25 feet. A different officer can come and push you back another 25 feet. A different officer, so on and so forth. You see where this is going. And pretty soon,
That's a loophole that will be
hundreds of feet
closed, I'm
away.
sure.
So this is, this is a point here that, they're misusing the 25-foot law.
So you filed a lawsuit and the ACLU is actually joining you. Can you tell me a little bit about it and what you hope the outcome will be? What do you hope it will change?
Yes. I reached out to the ACLU.
He wants a settlement.
Very
He wants to
quickly
earn
after the
money,
incident.
period.
They replied, and they definitely took my case, and I'm glad I reached out to them because I don't think anybody else would have been willing to take it.
So the officer seemed particularly concerned that you would film him and put him on YouTube. Were you concerned that when he ran your name that you would experience retaliation for being a cop watcher or being connected to this ACLU lawsuit?
I mean, I already felt that I was being retaliated against right on the spot, just from the previous encounter. And then, when they crossed the street and were sitting in the parking lot, I already felt that I was being retaliated against. They were just waiting, to find something that they could, pull out of their bag of tricks to get.
Bottom line is cops are becoming aware of these guys, and they're
I
not
don't
putting up
fear
with
any
their shit.
retaliation on, the ACLU lawsuit, now that I'm sure they're informed that, I'm behind that lawsuit. But yeah, in the moment there, I already knew I was being.
So Why did you become a cop watcher? What was the catalyst or what inspired you?
I would say there's a few things, but one of the first things that I encountered was one night I was coming home from work and I seen a lot of red and blue lights ahead of me. And at first I thought it was an accident. With modern police cars, the LED lights are so overbearing. As I got closer, I didn't even, well, before I had gotten to the police cars, apparently they had a sign to indicate that it was a DUI checkpoint, which I didn't catch until later, like after I reviewed the video. But as I got closer, I was being waved into a parking lot, and then an officer come to my window and started asking me questions, if I'd been drinking. And the thing that bothered me the most about it was they needed to see my ID. I refused at first, and then more officers, he requested the Sarge or something to come. And he come and said, if I do not provide my ID, I will go to jail for failure to ID. That really bothered me.
Oh no, you're behind a motor vehicle and they're trying to stop drunks from killing people on the road, and you're going to give them gruff about your ID after being pulled aside in a DUI checkpoint. It's completely unhelpful to society, and it's unhelpful to the police. And frankly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
That I was being inconvenienced, and then being demanded, to give ID for not doing anything against the law. I'm just coming home from work. There were some other things going on in South Bend that kind of sparked my interest, and I decided, to pick up a camera and go film. I did start watching.
Let's not forget that you were also extremely unhelpful to the police. You should be helpful to the police. You should try to build them up, not try to tear them down and be a hindrance to the execution of their duties.
Some other people. One of the first people that I started to watch on YouTube was Tom Zebra. His cop watches, and started to learn, just what to do.
I wonder how many subscribers this guy has. I haven't checked.
It just kind of kicked off from there.
What's the goal of your YouTube channel? I mean, what do you hope to accomplish?
I mean, my goal has always been to bring awareness to what's going on, with the police. And, I hope that somebody, gains from seeing what I do, how I interact with the police, how I'm using my rights. I just, hope people will take away, something out of it that will benefit them in the future.
I had asked you what inspired you to become a cop watcher, and you mentioned that you were nearly killed by a cop.
Yeah, I would be. I would be dead or
Leave the police alone, dude.
A buddy of mine was next to me, and we were discussing something or talking, and the light turned green, and it was probably maybe almost 3 seconds, and then I started to proceed. And I remember out of the corner of my eye, like just as I started to go, I seen a car, but it was way down the road. And I started to go, and then next thing you know, I see like a light out of the corner of my eye, and it flew by, and I was like, holy, like I was stunned.
Motorcycles have it hard. I'll give them credit on that one. It's tough. So dangerous.
Not only did he run the red light, he was excessively speeding, because that's a 30-mile-an-hour zone on the street.
Now, there's a question that we always ask is,
so let's beat up all cops and hate all cops because one cop ran a red light one time. All cops don't run red lights and kill people. It just blows things completely out of proportion.
journalists, when we're confronted with an institution or an agency that does not wish to answer to the people. It's a query that is the first thought that crosses my mind when a branch of government is pushing back on the right to hold them accountable or pushing back against transparency. Put simply, What are they trying to hide? I think it's a reasonable question because, as
Nothing.
we reported extensively, politicians are increasingly passing laws that make it harder, if not in some cases illegal, to record police. And even more troubling, prosecutors are subjecting cop watchers and First Amendment activists to bizarre charges like organized crime in an effort to thwart their right to record. Which brings me back to my point about
Of course, this is a narrative pushing channel, bunch of leftists. And they don't mention that the reason the politicians and the courts are responding in the way that they are is because of the disrespect and the dehumanization that is heaped upon police by you First Amendment auditors, the unhelpfulness, the waste of time that is always a part of the interaction when you guys start to do your antics. So there's another side to this story, lady.
hiding something, because it's hard to imagine why average citizens touting cell phones or GoPros would actually require a concerted government effort to stop them. I mean, what is it about a person with a cell phone that puts the fear of God in government officials that they will literally try to destroy the First Amendment to stop them? Well, let me try to answer.
That's not what's going on. They're trying to respond to all the negative things that happen when you guys come a calling. Like I just mentioned, it's just completely one-sided.
Answer that question. To do so, I'm going to share some facts about the state of our country that might initially seem irrelevant, but would perhaps explain the full-on push to keep cell phone cameras at bay. A statistic that is unique to our country, and that is the unseen driver of many ills. And it might seem inexplicable, but can actually be easily understood if you consider this simple, straightforward statistical reality. And here it is. The U.S. has the highest level of wealth inequality of any similarly situated nation on
Oh,
earth.
here we go.
In other words, the rich here are richer and more awash in wealth than any other country that has
Because
a
they
comparable
deserve it.
economy. And the divide between the ultra-rich and the rest of us is wider and more vast than any civilization that has preceded.
So this is where their Marxist tendencies come out. A bunch of communists. So what do? We're going to take money from those wealthy people and distribute it to you? Is that what you want? Of course it is. Just like you guys, the First Amendment auditing community goes after the cops because they want to stir up some lawsuits so they can get settlements from the hardworking taxpayers of the county or the city. So that's really what's going on here. But this pitch against the rich is really beyond the pale.
Us or currently exists. But of course, you might be asking now, Taya, what does this have to do with police? What does the fact that we have the biggest collection of fat cats and robber barons in the history of the world have to do with law enforcement? How are the filthy rich and bad policing connected? Well, let me try to answer that question. It's all explained by Matthew Dempson in his book, Poverty by America. Or if you want to watch our 2015 documentary called How Poverty Works, I'll put a link in the comments below. So both explore a simple fact about the intersection of poverty and wealth inequality.
These people are true believers.
Poverty is actually profitable, and great wealth is extracted by exploiting it. Both pieces also explore another truism about poverty that is often overlooked as well. Not only
What's your solution, lady? I want to hear your solution. She won't tell you what the solution is, which is to take money from the rich and give it to the poor.
is it profitable, but it's actually designed to be so. And that creates a system that is both disruptive and destabilizing, and that has to be managed. Because as poverty becomes more and more profitable for the few, the basic living conditions of the many become more and more tenuous.
Which is just ridiculous. Living standards have done nothing but improve over the last 50 years. That's absolutely insane. The wealth of Americans have done nothing but grow over the last 50 years, including middle America, in terms of 401ks and homes and whatnot. I was a former certified financial planner, so I know a few things about this. She's a typical, way out there left-wing Marxist who who is just, down with the rich, down with the police, and the poor will win the day. And it's communism basically. And where has communism worked well? It doesn't work well anywhere. Sorry, lady.
That's where policing comes in, because the reasons we see so much absurd, odd, or even downright unnecessary policing is because it's really not unnecessary at all. Meaning, police play a critical role in maintaining this resource divide that is often acknowledged. So let me try.
That's right. There's a concerted effort among all the police in all 50 states and every county in America, 5,000 counties, that they're working to keep the poor down so that the rich are benefited unfairly. That's really what's going on, is what she's saying. This is insane.
And explain how I think this works. The main thing to remember about extreme wealth is that it does not occur in a vacuum. Extreme wealth.
What does she know about wealth anyway? I want to know. And then what does she know about extreme wealth? Exactly. Other than what her liberal, authors that she reads tells her.
Requires, among other things, the hoarding of communal resources. For example, not paying their fair share for infrastructure that makes their wealth possible, but more importantly, controlling the political system that reinforces it. What exactly do I mean? Well, if you're the beneficiary of extreme wealth earned off the backs of the working people of this country, how do you keep the rest of the world from noticing? What I mean is, if you're filthy...
It wasn't the wealth off the backs of the working people that is at play here. Everybody got paid. This is the way that capitalism works. The best system ever devised by man. Every other system sucks. Capitalism could suck, you might argue, but it sucks less than the rest of the systems that are out there. This is what they don't tell you. In her case, she's saying if you are a billionaire like Elon Musk, for example, your employees use the roads that were paid for by tax dollars. Your employees use government resources like water and electricity and so on. And, therefore, your wealth is owned by the employees or the people as a whole, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And if you take all the wealth from the rich, the only thing that's going to happen is the rich are going to leave the country, their investment dollars are going to leave the country, and you're going to create misery. It's just going to be shared misery. It's not going to be a great situation when everybody's poor. I mean, it's asinine to think that is stable of a situation. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Rich at the expense of the poor, how do you keep anyone from figuring out or demanding accountability? And even ever more daunting, demanding fairness. Well, one way is to keep everyone off balance. And the best way to do that is to use an expansive and punitive criminal justice system to keep them occupied. What that means is that every useless arrest or bogus traffic ticket or overly harsh penalty that we report on are actually tools. In other words, over-policing is not excessive at all. And the videos we see of cops using cuffs in situations that seem at best ridiculous are actually part of a broader effort to crush dissent and corral the chaos that ensues when wealth is so unevenly skewed. Consider this statistical correlation if you think I'm conjuring patterns that don't exist. Since the 1970s, America has become the most rabid incarcerator in the history of the world. Since then, the number of people in prison per population in the US rose 7 times. That's sevenfold for anyone out there keeping score, meaning during that same period, our country's income inequality also rose exponentially. The amount of people incarcerated increased exponentially too. We put more people behind bars than any country on earth. Now, I understand, as I've said before,
lady, you're free the people, and you can steal up to $950 and not get arrested, and all the other liberal policies that your George Soros prosecutor friends around the country are implementing have failed. All of those communities have crime that is running rampant and out of control. it's the reason Donald Trump won this last election. Partly the reason is the out of control crime and the out of control liberal leftist prosecutors, which are looking the other way.
For that correlation is not always causation, and I understand that there are a myriad of factors that determine how many people end up ensnared in our criminal justice system. I certainly get that wealth inequality and building prisons is not a straightforward and easy relationship to delineate. But I will say this, there is one undeniable fact about wealth inequality that I think coincides quite nicely with the overly aggressive law enforcement we witness on a weekly basis. It is, to say the least, destabilizing, and it is disruptive for the same reason over-policing is destructive. It represents a gross imbalance.
Look, it's no different than what you guys are doing to the police. That's destructive. That's over, blowing out of proportion every little thing on a legal basis that you can during the interaction, and not causing a polite interaction and a professional interaction, but many times causing a lot of harm. You've wasted the time of the city. You've wasted the time of the officers, and you're belittling and berating and not building them up, and not, frankly, thanking them for being officers. I don't see you strapping a gun on and going and trying to protect the people, lady. You're just doing videos with your Marxist philosophy, trying to pimp your Marxist philosophy. I can't believe y'all have the subscribers that you have. It's insane.
Of power. That is, the more unaccountable billionaires you have, the more the political system that's supposed to represent all of us is bent to their will, the more resources are concentrated with just a handful of people, the more that power distorts all the checks and balances that are supposed to ensure that our government serves everyone. I mean, consider what happened to a proposal in Congress that was supposed to limit surprise medical bills. So surprise medical bills occur when a patient under distress receives care from a doctor
really getting
out
off
of
the
network
ranch here.
covered by their insurance. That series of events, of no fault to the patient, can lead to huge bills that are one of the reasons medical debt has exploded in this country, and more people are going bankrupt because of it. Several years ago, Congress decided enough was enough and began the process of approving legislation to stop the practice and end this unfair fleecing of Americans for good. But something funny happened on the way to passing this bill. A mysterious group started a $28 million advertising blitz, arguing the law would somehow be unfair to doctors. In other words, ensuring that patients were not overwhelmed with bankruptcy-inducing bills through no fault of their own was bad for the business of medicine. And the campaign worked, and the bill was seriously watered down from an outright ban to a process of arbitration, which of course favored the hospitals and doctors who benefited from this twisted process in the first place. And who was behind it? Who was making the case to put upon doctors to be able to drop a $40,000 bill on?
It's all we need is a jury of you, a bunch of people like you on a jury. I mean, how fair would that be? I don't think it's fair to say that arbitration is unfair when a jury of people like you, a bunch of Marxists, wouldn't be fair at all. So, I mean, I don't know what you're arguing.
An appendectomy patient, none other than investment bankers, among them the Blackstone Group, a collection of billionaires who apparently didn't have enough money and thus were forced.
She doesn't like billionaires. I wonder what she thinks of Elon Musk. Elon saved her ass, and she probably doesn't appreciate it.
To rip off sick people in their most vulnerable moments. The mega-rich consortium of billionaires spent a trifling amount for them to ensure, no, actually guarantee, that tens of thousands of people were stuck with hundreds of millions in debilitating debt. Debt that will inevitably destroy people's lives, drain their retirement accounts or their kids' college funds, kick them out of their homes, ruin marriages, and finally, make them criminals. And that's where law enforcement ultimately earns their keep, because at the end of this ruinous trail of wealth lie the people who make it possible. the working folks, you know, the ones that politicians
She's
pander to
loopy.
every 4 years ago, but who aren't afforded the decency of basic protections from fraudulent medical.
You know, Trump was elected in large part from the middle class. Greater percentage of blacks, greater percentage of Mexican or Hispanics, greater percentage of low income folks went to Trump this time around. And, you know, they did that for a host of reasons that I won't get into in this video. But, you know, this woman doesn't know what she's talking about.
Bill so someone can add another billion to their bank account. My point is that in order to continue this unhealthy wealth imbalance, the political system that's supposed to represent the common good must be thwarted. And once it is, then the people who could use their power to change it, namely us, must be disenfranchised. And we must be convinced that we are not worthy of the privilege. It's a twisted, self-reinforcing, vicious cycle. Excessive wealth corrupts and breaks a political system and makes us all seem like the other is the problem. And the ensuing chaos it creates
Civic
must be managed
imagination.
by an overbearing criminal justice system to diminish our political efficacy. And as I've said before,
You are pimping your channel. You guys got 1 million subscribers, I think. That's significant money coming to you guys. We know why you do this. And you're for the people. Right.
our civic imagination. That's why we see police power abused week after week after week. And that's why we will keep reporting on it week after week. Because even though the billionaires control the mainstream media, the independent press, which Stephen and I represent, will not be silenced.
Please give us money.
I want to
Beggars.
thank Freedom to Film for
Why don't
joining
you
us,
go out
and
and
I
work
hope he
for a
will
living?
update us soon on the success of his lawsuit to protect the right to film police. And of course, I have to thank intrepid reporter Stephen Janis for his research, writing, and editing on this piece. Thank you, Stephen.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank friends and mods of the show, Noli D and Lacey R, for their support. Thank you both. And a very special thanks to our Accountability Report Patreons. We appreciate you, and I look forward to thanking each and every single one of you personally in our next live stream, especially Patreon associate producers Johnny Yard, David K, Louis P, and super friends Shane Buster, Pineapple Cole, Chris R, Matter of Rights, and Angela True. And I want you watching to know that if you have video evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us, and we might be able to investigate for you. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at PAR.
Corporations. They're so evil. What an absolute idiot. She's too dramatic. Well, that's it. Until the next video, guys. Oh, yeah, look at this. This is crazy. He says, solidarity always or something. Solidarity forever. What a believer, huh? Come on.
TheRealNews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can always message me directly at Tejas Baltimore on Twitter or Facebook. And please like and comment. You know I read your comments and appreciate them. And we do have our Patreon link pinned in the comments below for accountability reports. So if you feel inspired to donate, please do. We don't run ads or take corporate dollars. So anything you can spare is greatly appreciated. My name is Taya Graham, and I am your host of the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.